Hello everyone, bonjour, good morning, guten tag, hallo, goedenavond, goedemorgen, selamlar, merhaba, shalom, salam alaikum in every language. Welcome to anyone from around the globe to this webinar around forms and forms. It's all going to be about forms, and we'll discuss a bunch of those technologies and how we could use them in M365 and how we can see the gaps, the goods, the bads, the advantages, the drawbacks, and see how SnapOn can help us where Microsoft lacks the knowledge as well as technology-wise. So, Amanda, thank you so much. I appreciate the introduction. I'm going to take over the screen, and then I'm going to just be talking for 40 minutes. And if my language or if something is not very clear to anyone, just raise your hand. We have moderators in the chat, and they'll be glad to help you out. So I'll just have to switch screens, and can you just confirm me that everything is okay on your side, Amanda, from a screen perspective, that you see the correct screen?
Yes, everything looks perfectly fine.
Okay, perfect. So there we go. Okay, the definition. Remember, we're going to talk about forms only. Today, when we look at the definition, a form is basically a platform or a tool that allows users to capture surveys, quizzes, polls on an easy way. Collecting feedback is one of them, conducting assessments or gathering data from various respondents. It's all the job of a form, right? And Microsoft has a tool here but you will see that that is not always the easiest way on collecting information. Collecting information is one thing, but you also need a way in order to automate that collected information, right? You have that info somewhere, maybe in a Dataverse, maybe in an Excel spreadsheet, maybe in a SharePoint list. I don't know, many ways to collect data. But then you need the tools in order to automate that. Well, Power Automate for automation, Power BI for reporting, maybe even Power Virtual Agents or Power Virtual Tables for extension through Copilot, and so on and so forward. So as you see that the need of collecting info and meshing that info and automating that info can get very extensive with Microsoft. And the next slide is all about the too many options spectrum. When you look at forms, well, Microsoft has a bunch of ways in collecting data, from Microsoft Forms to Microsoft Teams to OneDrive, SharePoint, the survey agent, the brand new agent within office.com, and now forms in SharePoint AI, right? When we look at the automation, oh my gosh, like the list, this is like only a simple list on how we could automate the knowledge that we consume for forms. Power Automate, rules in SharePoint, SharePoint Framework Solutions, PowerShell, Logic Apps, and so on and so forward. Something maybe nothing to do with forms and with automation, but it's a Microsoft thing. Having too much options for a tool is a thing. If you look at the group creation as an example, like I'm just leaving the form creation aside. If you think about, okay, how many options do I have in order to create a group? Well, more than 20. You can create a group from the M365 Admin Center, from Outlook, from Teams, from SharePoint, from Planner, from Yammer, which is now Engage, Power Platform, Viva, Stream, and so on and so forward. So it's not new. It's just the way on how Microsoft is working, and what I call them, they're mastering confusing people, right? And today, gathering that information is capital for organizations. Microsoft announced a new AI feature in SharePoint, which is like the evolution of the content assembly, where you can easily upload a Word document, and that Word document will be captured and then translated into a survey. The thing is, whenever you do that into a document library, well, you will see a bunch of things will happen in the backend, which is probably not good for the information architecture in your organization. I'm going to show that in a couple of seconds. An example is it will create a folder within that document library and then fill in that folder with all the responses, which I'm not a big fan, but that's how Microsoft decided to do it. But hey, there is a way on to do that. How do you see that? Well, basically, that document generation form, the second option, is now appearing into your tenants through to Copilot license or with pay-as-you-go services with SharePoint AI. Again, the same thing, right? If you use that AI options, well, the survey agent, notifications through SharePoint, notifications through workflows, through AI, manual stuff, it becomes way too complicated for you just to get that data and mesh that data and bring it to somewhere else. And that's why, personally, I love the tool of SnapOn with Quiz, the Quiz apps. It's because it has a lot of use cases that it can help us translating. You need to onboard an employee. You need some leave requests, incident reporting, like event registrations, procurement, expense reporting, even approvals, IT support requests. No matter what the use case is, you could use forms with Snap-on in order to build that intelligent automation as well as intelligent capture. I'm going to show you in a couple of seconds, and I only have like a few slides remaining, how difficult it is to capture information with Microsoft and automate that, and how easy it is to do that with Snap-on. Very intuitive, no code, literally no code, just drop downs, just a few things to fill it in, and your forms will be ready in a couple of seconds. And this is the slide, the most important slide, I think, that everyone should be aware of. Everything that we're going to build today on SnapOn software is 100% SharePoint native, meaning that I don't need to know anything about SharePoint framework solutions. I don't need to make exceptions on firewall level, or I don't need to create some apps on other software to build those forms and automations. It's all built in SharePoint, and many of them are reusable components. And we're going to see that in a couple of seconds about workflows and activities. My gosh, you just create it once and then you can just reuse it across your document libraries and so on and so forth. So that's, I think, the real power of Snap-on Forms, because they're 100% SharePoint native. And finally, fully responsive, well, which makes sense in the cloud and AI era. This is like the normal thing, but you'd be surprised that many things today within the Microsoft ecosystem, the whole spectrum cannot be responsive, but Snap-on is 100% responsive. And finally, the last slide, it's the integration with Teams. It's, again, 100% compatible with the tab in Microsoft Teams. That being said, that's already a lot of slides. Let's move to the exciting part of the story and see how things are gonna work in real life. Okay, now you can see my screen. I have a bunch of tabs open, and I'm gonna just start with this one. Forms with Microsoft. Well, you can easily go to forms.microsoft.com and you can create forms, right? I can come here and see the groups that I belong to. I can see the recent forms. I can see my forms, the filled-in forms, all good and well. The thing is, if you click on create a form, well, if you have a Copilot license, and that's a good thing, you can draft a survey with Copilot. You can just prompt here, create me a survey for project management. Just a brand simple question with Copilot. Well, now you'll see Copilot will understand the question, resonate, and then create all the questions for me here. This is amazing. Don't get me wrong. This is amazing, right? It's gonna work. It's asking me questions. If I like it, I can click on keep. If I don't like, I can just click on regenerate. The problem here is, well, it is saving. Look, it has been saved somewhere. And that somewhere is the problem, right? I have no idea where that went, because I just did create a forms. It did create that form for me. I can collect the responses, but where did that really go? Well, simple, it went to OneDrive. If I go to my files, here, if I just wait a couple of seconds and have a first response to that, well, it will come within my OneDrive. And that's a big problem to my OneDrive, because the problem with that is that if I leave the company and that form is being used by everyone, well, there is a problem. No one will take care of that form. If I fell sick and I cannot come to work for a couple of months, again, the same problem. And that's the reason why Microsoft has that option to, and let me just create a new one to show that to you. Let's say I'm going to just not use Copilot and start with a choice as an example, and I'm very happy with that. This is going to be saved again. I'm going to just click on collect responses and copy the link. right? I have my form. I will just paste that just here, give it a shot, submit the response, and then go back to my OneDrive, go to my files, and hopefully this time, as I have a response, it should be appearing here, but for some reason it doesn't come. But nevertheless, it should be into my OneDrive because this is a personal OneDrive. And that's the reason why Microsoft has that option to move to a group option within Forms. Why? Because they know it's a personal form. And if you are not working for the organization, it's still in your OneDrive, you need to be able to move that to a group. But can you explain this to an end user? It's way too complicated. They don't know what the SharePoint site is, they don't know what a personal form is, and they have no idea what the group is. And when they see this, well, okay, I can move this to a group. You get a list of all the groups that you're part of. I can choose SnapOn and move it. Well, nothing happens. Well, that's what you think. The only thing that is gonna change is SnapOn is now on front of the form and not anymore your name. So you move from a personal form to a shared form. Me as a technical person, I do understand the difference, but my goodness, try to explain this to an end user. But that's only one thing, right? That's only from forms. You can do the same from a SharePoint site. If I am into a SharePoint site, and that's the core business, right? Everyone loves SharePoint and we use SharePoint a lot. If you come to SharePoint, well, you can either create a form from the home, which is like called a list form, or you can just go to a list and then click on forms, and you can also create the forms from here, right? And something brand new that Microsoft has been adding is within a document library, if you click on forms, well, you get again another form capability where you can just upload a Word file. And let's do that. Let's go and upload a Word file. I'll go to my device, and then I should have like a contract from Europe Assistance. That AI capability will now analyze the Word file. Phenomenal, all good. I love the AI capability in SharePoint and OneDrive to do things for you. It will just check for all the common patterns in my document and then try to come with a survey which will make hopefully sense. And I could use that. Look, it says, okay, I've checked your data and I can see that there is a certificate issue date, a policy number, an insurance name, an insurance person address, and so on and so forward. If you're okay with that, you can continue, give it a name. Let me say done with AI. I can choose for a color, click on create. Now I have a different form experience. There is nothing anymore about Copilot, right? This is completely different. However, the good thing is I can see all the fields that the AI has been telling me. If I'm happy with that, well, I can just use that form. I'll copy this. And here is the bad thing. If I just copy that and paste this into my form, not this one. Let me just try again. Oh, it's still generating. Hello. Okay, copied. And then just paste this. Now I have that specific form. I can just, fill in that information, random values, and then save this. This is going to work. Thank you. Your response has been submitted. But if I go back to my document library, look, it did create a new folder called Done with AI. And if you click on it, well, I have one document with the values that I had to fill in a couple of seconds ago. So every form you're going to create will create a folder into that document library with all the responses. So we have been telling for the last 15 years to everyone that folders are evil, that folders are bad, but now we are just creating folders into document libraries for collecting information. And that's where I want to try to go. So you can create forms in SharePoint document libraries. You can create forms in lists. You can create forms with AI. You can create forms within forms. You can create forms in Teams. And if I even now, let's say, forget all about the forms experience within SharePoint, you just click on documents and then go to integrate Power Apps and yet another forms option. And then you can click, oh, this looks amazing. So I don't have any Copilot license, so all that AI part is gone. I'm not a big fan of the SharePoint form experience because it creates a folder, which is fair enough. Now you can go to customize forms. It is supposed to be free. Well, when you click on it, wow, I'm leaving the SharePoint experience to come to the Power Apps experience. And if you have no idea on how to build forms with Power Apps, well, you're completely lost because this is a complete different experience than what we have with SharePoint. Well, I see something that I somehow know. It looks SharePoint, the title. It looks like I can add a field. Okay, cool. Oh, I can add like the checked out, checked in. Those are out of the box SharePoint values. Well, I can do that, right? Okay. I can see them here, but what does the field name mean? What is the data type? What is this? And what if I click on add a custom card? How can I link this to an existing or another data? This is so complex. And don't ask end users to understand how to build forms with Power Apps if they've never done this before, right? And that's where I love SnapOn software because that's where it makes my life extremely easy because I don't have to tell them, hey, you have forms in OneDrive, you have forms in Microsoft Forms, you have forms in SharePoint, you have forms in Power Apps, and you need to use Power Automate to automate that. No, I just have one button in my ribbon, and that's called Quiz Apps. And let's deep dive into it and see how that works. So I have a simple list with a few metadata and a few IDs and items into it. So it's an issue tracker list where you can see I have a few problems here, like dashboard charts not loading or update footer copyright here, a few problems with the item description, with the priority, with the status, and with the assigned to. Basic list, nothing very fancy. If you click on Quiz Apps, well, now I'm remaining into SharePoint, and that's what I mean with 100% SharePoint native. I'm not redirected to Power Apps, or I don't have to go to Forms. I'm definitely still remaining in SharePoint. And you get a bunch of options. Well, we will see many of them. The first things first, which I love, is formatting, conditional formatting, because I'm a true believer that if your data looks great, people will use it. If your data visualization is horrible, people will not use it. The better it looks, the more people will start using it. And that's the reason why conditional formatting with SnapOn is so easy to showcase values within your list. So first things first, it's going to ask you, okay, Gokan, which column you'd like to apply that conditional formatting. Let's say I'll go for, or we'll create a new one just to show you how that works. We'll create issue tracker, a new column here, and we'll say in a text, operating system, OS, just random values herein, okay? And then I'm gonna just say editing grid view, and I'm gonna say Mac OS or Windows, because Mac OS maybe needs a specific engineer to work on. And finally, Windows. There we go. I'm gonna exit the grid view. Now you'll see I have a brand new column just here. I'm going to click on Quiz Apps just here and come back to conditional formatting. Boom. And what I'm going to say here is I'm going to choose for the OS column and say I'm going to add a new rule. I want that the color becomes yellow, or then you can just choose any other color from the palette, and I can just make that blue. And then I'm going to definitely add a condition. And that condition could be system values like assigned to, or I can also go to my custom made column and I can say the OS is equal to Mac OS. So every Mac OS field, well, actually should have that specific color. When I click on save, without any code, without anything spectacular, I can just come to my list, click here, and then you'll see that the color has now been changed into that specific color. And now I can easily scope the information and say, you know what, every macOS now needs to have a special assigned to and a special engineer working on the case, right? So that's how easy that you could do for conditional formatting with quiz. Going back to quiz app forms, just here, well, you can also go and add, let's say, I'll like the KPI tracker. Also, another thing about visualization. You can go here within the KPI tracker and then choose a column. I have a column with values, right? And I'm going to just maybe show that to you here, the issue tracker. I have, do I have it? No, let's create that one as well. I'll go and create a number field just here, and let's say value. And what I want to say is the amount of time I've been playing around in resolving that issue with quiz in SharePoint. I'm going to again go to edit in grid view, and I'm going to say this is like 70% done. This is like 12% done. Let's say this is like 66% done. This is like 99% done. And this is like 45% done, right? Just playing with numbers. And when I come back to quiz, I can just say, or maybe I need to refresh just here, refresh the page. And I can just here say, oh, I have the new column called value. And I can say, okay, I want either to have a progress bar or I can either have an icon. I'll go for a progress bar. You can see the colors just here. And then I just say, take the value of this column and show it to me. The minimum value from 0 to 100, you can always play and have more or less depending the case you have in your organization. I'm going to click on save. And now with zero interaction, zero code, if I come back to my list and click on refresh, what's going to happen is, look how amazing and how easy it is to bring that animation and show the value in percentage in graphics into your SharePoint. 100% native, nothing, no code required, nothing required, and I can see that definitely within my SharePoint list. I'm coming back, way more options. So we've seen conditional formatting, we've seen KPI tracker, but you also have something called column permissions, which also I'm a huge fan. So you can decide to show or hide columns depending on values, on stuff you have in SharePoint. So let's say you'd like to show rules for title, or let's say for assigned to. And I can add a rule here. So I can either show, hide, or disable the new form, the edit form, or the list form for assigned to if that's meeting a certain condition, right? I can just say, okay, you know what? The OS is not that important if, let's say, here, I'm going to hide this and hide it from everywhere when Gokan is the one that's submitting that request, because I know Gokan is a Microsoft fanboy. He will never use a Mac OS. So it's by default Windows, right? So I'm going to say when the current user is equal to Gokan. So the OS hide it in everywhere when the current user is equal to Gokan. Let's save this. So hide, and then where the current user is equal to Gokan. Let me try again. There we go. It has been saved. So I'm going back to my list. I'm going to just refresh to make sure that the latest version is being uploaded. I'm going to click on new. And normally I should not see anymore the OS into my field. I can see title, I can see description, priority, status, assigned to, value, and so on and so forward. There is no way I can see the OS because by default it knows, oh, it's Gokan, so I'm not going to show anything around that. So I can definitely do the same. I'll just come here to column permissions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all the permissions I have here just to show you that the dynamic values are being taken in consideration. So I have nothing as permission anymore. I'm going to just refresh and then click on new. And what you will see normally here, OS should be appearing. And there you go. I have my OS just here coming back. So you can have that intelligent way of getting data for forms in your SharePoint. Can you imagine the amount of time you would need for Microsoft Forms or in Power Apps in order to build that graphic charts or building that intelligence of, hey, if some value is equal to Gokan, don't show that field. It's going to be a huge, huge project for your organization. Many other things that I really love with Quizcom apps is that you can also bring non-SharePoint native options to SharePoint. And that is fundamental because what I think is you have to first build that knowledge layer. So you have your list, you bring that columns and you bring that intelligence, that conditional formatting, you bring that, that permission, you bring a bunch of other stuff, you build that knowledge. And once that knowledge is built, then you build your form. One thing that I really love is the markup. So you can have a markup field, and let's call that signature, just here. And then I can just ask within SharePoint to have a column and where people can just sign to make that specific field, let's say, regulated. So I'm going to say that column is called signature. Everyone can sign it. And I'm going to, you know what? Assign it to one of those columns. Why is that important? Because once you sign it, it's going to be in green, all good. But if the title is changed, well, you have to re-sign it again to make sure that this is still valid. Or you cannot choose title. You could go for assign to, you could go for ID. It doesn't really matter. I will go for title because that's the first field. And then you can just choose the background color, choose the colors from the markup, the default line, and so on and so forth. But normally, it should be something like that. So you create a column called signature. You choose who can sign. I leave it open so anyone can sign. And then you map it to a column. I'm going to click on save. By the way, this option does not even exist in SharePoint. And that's why I love you can bring that non-native SharePoint capability to SharePoint. I'll go back to my list. I click on issue tracker. And now if I click on refresh, I have a brand new signature column with a value. Wow. Okay, let's try now. I'm going to click on new and I'm going to say, let title issue with Power Apps, just some text, random text, priority, high, status, in progress, assigned to, let's say, Gokan, Windows, value, let's say 66. And here I already have like that visualization of that value, pretty amazing within that form. And then I can just sign with Gokan, right? It has been signed and I'm going to save it. Now you'll see that I have a brand new item into my list here, issue with Power Apps, and it has been digitally signed. It's now green. The thing when we mapped it with the ID, the title column, is if I change this and make Power Apps like this, it's going to say, hey, this is not valid anymore. I can definitely still save it, right? But it's going to say you have to clear it and sign it again because otherwise you can't make that valid anymore into a SharePoint column. And now, if I click on refresh, you'll see that it's again signed with Quiz Apps. Okay. Now, let's say this is all good for you and we'll go back to the Quiz Apps. And hey, you have a bunch of other options that you could use. I'm not going to go in every of those options because we only have like 40 minutes, 45 minutes to show. We still haven't built our form yet. But just want to mention that all those options that you have within the Quiz Apps are here to make your life easy, where Microsoft is fundamentally wrong in diversifying every tool and every artifact across multiple platforms, while Quiz brings them all back into one backbone as an endpoint for you as an end user. Let's say you're happy with that and you want to build your form. You have two ways on building forms. You can either go for public forms, where the form is public for everyone, and you can use it across the organization or even outside the organization. But then you can also use here the form builder. Let's go for form builder, and then let's build also one with public forms. I'm going to go for form builder, and then it's going to ask me like, Gokan, how do you want to see the information? You can go for tabs, or you can go for collapsible groups. I like tabs because I like to see them next to each other. And then the information, well, it could be either info bubble or below the column. I like to go the M365 way, so I'll leave it as the info bubble. I click on new tab, and then you have to give it a name. Let's go for information as the tab name. And then here is the fun part. You click on a row, and then you can here click on empty, and then you have four ways to choose your data from. You can go for HTML elements. I can add a horizontal line, right? I can add special columns, a reverse lookup. I can go for SharePoint columns. I can go for OS, priority, signature, title, value, or I can go for system columns created by SharePoint itself. Now, I'm going to go here, let's say for the title. I want to see the title. You can make a difference and add a second part, and then you can add something else, let's say created by. That could be the first tab of your form. If you want to add a second tab, well, you just click here on new tab, and then you say general information. And then again, the same thing here is, well, you click here and then you go for the columns that you want to show. Here, maybe I want to go for status. And then if you want to add something more, well, click on the little plus button, and then you can add a second row. And here you can go, let's say, for a button. You can say, Gokan, I do understand the status column, I do understand the title, I do understand the SharePoint fields, but what has the button to do here? Because how do I configure this? What should it do? Well, basically, when you go here, you have the GS. So if you're a developer, well, you can build your own logic and add all the code. Or here, you can click on the little wheel and then click on the button properties. I can go for an icon. I can go for the text. I can just say, click here. I can go for a description. I can go for the alignment. Let's go for center. And then I can just go, like an action button and then click on save as an example. You get all that capabilities in order to modify a button, right? If you want to have a new tab, well, we can go for here and then let's say final step and then add a row. And then again, just come here. And now let's add the signature as an example. No matter what, you can always add conditions to forms. You can definitely say, you know what, whenever OS value is equal to something, right here, show me that or don't show me that. If the user is Gokan, you don't have to show that field. You have to bring that field in, right? You can always go here created by and not always like SharePoint created columns. You can go by system columns and say created by current value is equal to Gokan, and then only that specific part of the form will be shown for you. All possible with the out-of-the-box capabilities with quiz forms. Now, if you're happy with this form, well, you can save, right? Here, let me just see. Okay, not that much, but I'm gonna save this here, and the magic will happen in the backend. So remember this view. I have my view. I'm gonna just click on refresh. Nothing will change. Everything remains the same. It's gonna change when I click on new. You probably have seen the little quiz logo appearing for a couple of seconds. And now look, I have my tabs just here. I can enter the value. I can choose here. And then the final step, I can sign it. In a couple of seconds, without going through forms, without going through Power Apps, I actually changed the complete behavior of my SharePoint forms. And now look, I can click on save. And then I just refresh. Well, it has been poorly designed. I'm giving that to you, but here I have my brand new item here. It has been signed and I just see it just here. How easy it is for you to build a form. I'm going to just give it the title from quiz forms, and then just, like sign it, virtually save. And now if I click on refresh, you'll see from quiz, and it has been into my SharePoint list. So easy to bring that intelligence to your SharePoint forms, to mash up the data, to collect information, and to bring some colors, forms, signature, KPI trackers, validation, formatting to your data. Another thing is, and what a lot of organizations are requiring is, okay, Gokan, that is amazing and I love it, but sometimes, and that sometimes can be a lot of times, is we need to have that ability to actually bring that form outside. We don't want to, like invite people to the organization. We don't want to create B2B accounts. We don't want to, bring that user into our Enter ID. We just want to have a way on collecting information. Well, that's where the public forms is playing a huge role with Quiz. When you click on it, well, you're going to see it's almost the same behavior. It's just not relying on SharePoint anymore. I click on new form and it's almost the same designer. I'll have it give a name, quiz, webinar, survey. And I'm going to just copy this and give it here, right? And then step one is the tab. So I'm going to say part one, click on plus. I can go for part two, right? I can build this knowledge. And here I can just say, okay, I want to add a row. And it's again the same thing. Here, you can add as much rows as you want. And then I can just drag and drop the information from right to left. I can just bring that here. And I can just bring the priority, let's say here. And now I'm building my form with the SharePoint values within the form designer. And now I have part one with the issue description, with the title, with the prio. And let's say I'll go to part two. I'll go for OS. I'll go for signature. I'll go for status. And I'll go for value as an example, just to show you that I can integrate the SharePoint columns within the public forms. Now, I can also insert elements. Remember, the HTML, the button, and so on and so forward. I can insert them here as well. So I'm going to just do part three. So this is like part three. I can go for an empty HTML. I can go for files. I can go for a checkbox. I can go for a bunch of things. And finally, the form settings. And the language, supporting many major languages. I can show a message after it's being submitted or even redirected somewhere. And this is like the message I'm going to show. I can say quiz, SnapOn, thanks you for filling in the form, right? And if you're happy with that, well, you can either preview this or you can just save it. I'm happy with that. It asks you where I'm located. It's either United States or Europe, and I'm going to say I'm from Europe. Click on save, and that form will now be saved within my quiz and SnapOn software, and I can easily come back and edit this, or I can just share the link so anyone can fill in that form, or I can just embed this into any public website, into any SharePoint site, if you'd like to into SharePoint, if you like an HTML, WordPress, any other iframe holder, well, can be holding that form for you. So I'm going to just copy this specific link, come here and paste it. And look, I did never ask for that gentle design and it just had it for me. So great. So let's go for the description. Problem from public forms. And I get the same experience as I have in SharePoint and as in Word Online. I can just make my text way better looking by just choosing, the font. I can just make it bold and so on and so forward. I'm going to just say from public forms. I'll give it a prio. I'll click on next. Well, you can sign it. Value, let's say 77. Status, in progress. All those values are coming from SharePoint. I'll click on submit. And now it says, SnapOn, thank you for filling the form. Remember the message I had to write in the form, it's now here. Now, what does that mean? If I now go to my SharePoint here and close this, and maybe just a quick refresh in order to make sure that everything is loading correctly, I'll go to public forms. I have this, and I can either edit, duplicate, or delete. I can just preview this here from again. And now if I go to my SharePoint site and click on refresh, I have, look, my value that comes from the public form within my SharePoint without them knowing that SharePoint is in the backend. And the good thing is, hey, remember I did make my text in bold? Look, it's bold in SharePoint. Remember I had that intelligence on having that progress bar in blue. I just had like 77. It is now in the progress bar 77 as well. So it is not because you're working with the public form that all that knowledge you have been building around forms, the data capturing with Quizcom are all lost. No matter how you capture the information from public forms or from the form builder within Quizcom, all that knowledge remains within your organization. Final part before we leave to the Q&A is the automation part of it, right? That's also very fundamental. So I'm going to click on Quiz app, and here what's going to happen is here the latest option is all about workflows. It's about automating the content. When you click on it, well, you can see, well, you can either have an automatic workflow, use a trigger workflow, or schedule workflow. At the end, it's all the same. It's like in Power Apps, like you have like automated workflows, like scheduled workflows, triggered workflows. They all the same. It's just on how you trigger them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to simply here say, you know what? I want an automatic workflow. And very easy. I get a designer. I give it a name. Okay. What can we do? Let's say whenever an item is added, I want you to do something. Could be sending email. Description, send email to Sarah as CEO because that survey is very important. Oh, important. There we go. I'm applying it. So I have my trigger. Whenever an item is added, well, now I can do something. Now that activity here, well, there is no activity, right? And that's what I was saying, like reusable components. When you build something once, well, you can always reuse them somewhere else. So now I have to create an activity. And that activity could be, well, adding an item, copying an item, email. I can get a column value. I can move an item. I can set permissions and so on and so forward. So I'm going to go for email. And I'm going to say send email. Description, no need. And then click on save. Oh, recipients. Sarah, do I have your, no, I don't have your email, so I'm gonna just use mine. So let's say Sarah is using my email to get the emails. You can, the recipients, the CC, the BCC, the display from, the subject, new entry has been made into the form, right? And then I can just, you know, within the form have a text and then click on save. So now I have an activity saved here for me, and then I can just, you know, use that activity here into my workflow. And that's what I mean, reusable components. We've been begging Microsoft to have those reusable components everywhere in Power Apps in SharePoint. When you look at autofill columns in SharePoint, whenever you have a prompt, you extract data, it's only on site level in document library level. You cannot use that same prompt anywhere else. Now I have this specific component and I can use that in every workflow if I'd like to, because it's already existing, right? So let's go for it. And then I can just easily save it. And now I have a trigger which says every time within that list, if a new item is being sent, just send an email. Let's go into the issue tracker, and I'm going to just here add an item, say for workflow, and then click on save very quickly. And now the workflow engine behind the screen should run. And in a couple of seconds, I should receive an email. And once that email comes in, I'm going to show that to you. But with all that being said, that's all I had to say about forms, about quiz.com apps, about the automation, and about how Microsoft is phenomenal with AI. But you have to pay for the licenses. It's like $30 per user per month in order to get that AI capabilities, in order to get Copilot. And whenever you don't have that license, you've seen with the SharePoint forms how badly and how very limited you are, and how badly the information architecture becomes with folders, and how quiz come and how SnapOn and the quiz apps can help you in order to automate content, make that intelligent action, that data actionable and intelligent with all the graphics and all the forms, either through the organization or making public forms. And again, workflows, reusable components, very easy. You've seen, I'm not a workflow person, but creating a trigger and then assigning it to an activity, not a big deal. Try to do that with Power Automate. Try to do that with Power Apps. I guarantee you, this is going to be a big, big problem.